In Secrets of the Egyptian Soul, you'll embark on a transformative journey to rediscover the ancient wisdom hidden within you. Through real stories and spiritual insights, you'll unlock the power of stillness, purpose, and resilience. Secrets of the Egyptian Soul. In our modern world, we have forgotten much of what the Egyptians knew. We're taught to chase after things, titles, money, success, and to silence the voice within us that knows better. We've replaced the sacred with the superficial. We've drowned out the whispers of our soul with the noise of everyday life, and in the process, we've forgotten who we truly are. This book is a journey back to the soul. It is a journey back to the wisdom of the Egyptians, whose understanding of the soul's purpose and power was profound. The secrets they left behind are not buried beneath the sands of time. They're alive and waiting for us to remember, to awaken. In Secrets of the Egyptian Soul, you will discover the spiritual truths that have been hidden in plain sight for centuries. Through the stories of ordinary people, like you, who have encountered extraordinary moments of clarity and awakening, you will learn how to reconnect with your soul's deepest desires, heal old wounds, and unlock the limitless potential that lives within you. You will step into the shoes of those who've walked the path before you, from ancient Egypt to the modern world, and find that their journey is your own. You will come to understand that the struggles, the pain, and the confusion you face are not barriers but gateways to a greater truth. This book is not just a collection of stories or spiritual teachings. It is a map for your soul. Every chapter holds a key, every word a reminder, every practice a step closer to reclaiming the power and peace that has always been yours. As you read, you will feel the ancient energies stir within you. You will discover that your soul knows the way. It has always known. You are not alone on this journey, and you are not lost. The answers you seek are already within you, waiting to be remembered. This is your invitation to return to the sacred, to uncover the secrets of the Egyptian soul that will lead you home. The journey begins now. Chapter 1. The Desert Doesn't Lie. Nora stood at the edge of Arizona's Sonoran Desert, her cracked windshield reflecting the dying sun like a shattered promise, and her hands gripped the steering wheel of a car that had given up, just like she had. Her heart raced, but it wasn't from fear. It was from silence. The kind of silence that doesn't just surround you but climbs into your chest and demands to be heard. She was 39, divorced, and drifting, with a therapist card in her glove box and no real plan. When the engine died that afternoon just outside Tucson, she thought it was just more bad luck. But as the last bit of cell signal faded, she heard something else. Nothing. Not the noise of traffic, not the weight of expectations, not the hum of always needing to be okay, just desert, sand, and silence. And slowly it felt like the desert wasn't empty. It was listening. She walked barefoot into the sand, the heat still rising from the earth, the sky turning gold behind saguaro silhouettes. And for the first time in years, tears fell without guilt. Not because she was weak, but because she remembered who she was before life made her forget. In the middle of nowhere, she felt it. Her soul hadn't left her. It had just gone quiet, waiting for her to get still. That's when it came, like wind through palm fronds, a phrase that seemed to echo from some forgotten part of time. The soul remembers what the world forgets. That phrase would repeat through her mind for days, tattooing itself across her thoughts like a memory rising from the sand. She sat in the dirt, heart pounding in rhythm with something ancient. It wasn't mystical. It was raw and real, and somehow more honest than anything she'd felt in a therapy session. The desert didn't lie. The desert didn't distract. It revealed. And what it revealed was this: we lose our souls not from sin, but from noise. From the chaos of pretending, performing, rushing, forgetting that the most sacred part of us whispers, never shouts. In the stillness, she heard it again. The soul remembers what the world forgets. And for the first time in years, she listened. She didn't need to be healed. She just needed to come home to herself. That night she walked back to her car not as a woman broken down, but as a woman being rebuilt, piece by honest piece. The truth is, we wait for miracles, but our soul doesn't need thunder. It needs silence. Stillness is the gate. And that gate opens when we stop fighting the quiet and start trusting it. The next morning, a ranger found her, offered help, and called for a tow truck. But she had already been rescued. Not by a man, or money, or a miracle, but by remembering what mattered. By reconnecting with the one voice she had ignored, her own. And now, weeks later, she still returns to that desert, if only in her mind. Whenever the world grows loud, your soul waits too. Right now, beneath the scrolling, beneath the schedule, beneath every mask you wear to survive. And you don't need a desert to find it, just a decision. A decision to sit in silence, if only for 10 minutes a day, and let your soul speak. No fixing, no faking, just listening. Because your soul, it remembers. The soul remembers what the world forgets. And once you remember too, everything begins to bend toward truth, toward healing, toward you. In the next chapter, we'll step into a new mirror, not one hanging on your wall, but the one inside you, the mirror that always tells the truth, if you're brave enough to look. Chapter 2. The Mirror Inside the Pyramid. Darius had always been a man of uniform, first in the army, then behind a Detroit security desk. But it wasn't until Cairo that he truly saw himself. He hadn't come looking for clarity. He came to distract himself, numb the ache that followed him like a shadow after deployment. The Cairo air was thick with dust and heat, the kind that pressed against your skin and made your bones feel ancient. He wandered through the Khan el-Khalili market, drawn by incense and unfamiliar music, until a glint caught his eye, an old, cracked mirror leaning against a cart of forgotten things. Its silver frame was tarnished, almost skeletal, and the glass had a lightning-shaped crack running through the center, yet it pulled him in. When he looked into it, he didn't see his reflection. He saw a man he hadn't spoken to in years. A man with tired eyes, a stitched scar near his temple, and the quiet dignity of someone who had seen too much but said too little. He didn't see a soldier. He saw the boy who used to paint graffiti at 16, the brother who held his mother's hand through chemo, the man who came back from war but didn't know how to come back to himself. And it hit him like a wave. The soul is not what we show. It's what we survive. His fingers brushed the mirror's edge as if it could speak. In that sliver of glass he saw his grief, his grit, his guilt, and still underneath it all he saw life. Not the life others had told him to lead, but the raw, unfinished story etched deep in his bones. That's what Egypt was to him, not pyramids or postcards, but memory. An invitation to stop performing and start remembering. You see, identity isn't in what we wear or post or pretend. It's found in the silent scars, in the choices we make when no one claps. Darius didn't buy the mirror. He didn't need. It had already done its job. That night, in his hotel room lit by flickering hallway light, he wrote down 3 moments that nearly broke him, and then 3 ways they built him instead. He called them his soul markers. And maybe that's the work most of us avoid. Looking in mirrors that don't flatter, facing reflections that aren't filtered, and letting our survival tell the story, not our surface. Because the world will always praise what you present, but your soul, it remembers what the world forgets. It remembers the days you got up when no one was watching, the nights you stayed soft in a world that begged you to go numb, the hours you kept faith when your chest was caving in. That's who you are. Not your title, not your trauma, not the mask. Just you, wounded, worthy, and wildly alive. So here's your practice if you're willing. Write down 3 moments that shaped your true self. Not the resume version. No, go deeper. Choose the ones you don't talk about in small talk. The ones that sting, stretch, or saved you, and read them aloud. Let them remind you that identity isn't a costume, it's a calling. You're not lost. You're layered. You're not broken. You're becoming. When Darius left Cairo, he didn't pack the mirror, but he carried its lesson. Every time he looks in any mirror now, he asks himself not, do I look okay? But am I still becoming who I was born to be? And that's the question for you too. Because once you see your soul clearly, no cracked reflection can lie to you again. Next, we'll walk with Melissa, who released her grief into the Nile and discovered that surrender isn't weakness, it's sacred power. But for now, hold on to this. The soul remembers what the world forgets. Chapter 3. Sands of Surrender. Melissa stood barefoot at the edge of the Nile, the air thick with sand, sorrow, and the scent of jasmine, her hands trembling as she clutched the small cedar urn that held the last of her father. Asheville, North Carolina, felt galaxies away. This river, ancient and wide and endlessly alive, seemed to breathe beneath her, whispering things her grief hadn't let her hear until now. She had carried that urn across oceans and continents, not because her father asked, but because something deeper had. In life he held on to everything, his pain, his pride, his silence, and now in death, he was teaching her to do the opposite. Let go. Melissa stepped into the water, the hem of her linen dress catching silt, and with one slow exhale she tipped the urn. Ash met water like a prayer. No music, no drama, just surrender. She watched the current carry him, watched the particles dissolve into something bigger, something eternal, and felt the ground inside her shift. That was the moment she realized. We don't break from losing control. We break from pretending we ever had it. Releasing him didn't feel like abandonment. It felt like obedience to something sacred. And as her knees touched the wet shore, a warmth filled her chest, the kind you feel when truth walks in without knocking. She didn't need to be strong anymore. She didn't need to hold everything together. Because healing isn't about keeping it all. It's about knowing what to set down. In that moment, the phrase came back, gentle like a childhood memory. The soul remembers what the world forgets. And she did remember. She remembered how her father used to hum in the kitchen before cancer stole his breath. She remembered how silence used to feel like safety. She remembered how every time she let go of people, of plans, of pain, something better always found her. And so she made a promise to live open-handed, to trust the current. Letting go, she finally understood, wasn't failure. It was faith. The Nile didn't mourn what it lost. It carried everything forward. And so would she. That night, under a sky that looked exactly like the one over Carolina, she wrote her fears on a torn receipt she found in her bag. Fear of being alone. Fear of forgetting his voice. Fear of not being enough. She burned it in a small clay bowl outside her hotel room, the flames soft and hungry, and she buried the ashes beneath a tree that grew just outside the garden wall. It wasn't magic. It was more powerful than that. It was choice. The choice to stop carrying what doesn't belong to your future. The world teaches us to hold tight. The soul teaches us to release. And you, reading this now, you carry ashes too. Not of people, maybe, but of identities, expectations, heartbreaks, dreams that died quietly while you smiled in public. What if you let them go? What if surrender didn't mean you lost, but meant you finally trusted? The truth is, your soul already knows how to grieve. It also knows how to rise. You just have to stop resisting the current long enough to float. Melissa didn't become someone new on that riverbank. She became who she already were, beneath the armor, beneath the stories. And now she returns to the Nile in her mind, whenever life asks her to release something she thought she needed. She lights a candle, writes it down, burns it, buries it, and breathes again. That can be your practice too. Write one fear down, burn it, bury it. Release control, not to give up but to rise up. Because your healing isn't in the holding, it's in the letting go. The soul remembers what the world forgets. The Nile knows. And soon, you will too. In the next chapter, we'll meet Omar, a man who ignored the signs until they screamed, and discover what happens when you finally open your eyes to what your soul already sees. Chapter 4. The Eye Never Sleeps. Omar sat motionless in his Manhattan apartment, the glow of 5 computer screens flickering across his tired face, his fingers hovering above the keyboard like a pianist who forgot the melody. He was only 33, a rising software engineer at a booming fintech company, living in a city that never sleeps. But for weeks now, his own nights had been haunted by a single recurring dream, a golden eye watching him from the darkness. It didn't blink, it didn't move. It simply stared, steady and unflinching. At first he shrugged it off, blamed stress, overwork, the usual burnout cocktail. But the dreams came back, again and again. Sometimes in the subway, sometimes hovering, in the air above his childhood home. Once he even saw it in the steam on the mirror after a cold shower. Not just in sleep, in real life. Coincidence, he told himself. But deep down, something ancient stirred. On the 4th night, unable to shake it, he typed the phrase into his browser. Gold-eye dream meaning. Dozens of images appeared, and one hit him like a lightning bolt. The Eye of Horus, an Egyptian symbol for protection, healing, awareness. Omar didn't grow up spiritual. His parents were immigrants from Sudan, proud and practical. Life was about doing the right thing, not chasing signs. But this wasn't a sign. It was a call, a whisper from deep inside that something was watching, not to judge, but to awaken. He began noticing things he used to ignore. A street performer playing a flute in perfect sync with the rhythm of his own steps. A message on a billboard that echoed the thought he just had. A stranger on the train reading the exact book his friend had recommended hours earlier. The world wasn't random, it was intentional, and his soul, long ignored beneath his screens and meetings and deadlines, had decided it was time to speak. Not through noise, through symbols, through dreams, through the invisible thread that connects all things. The soul remembers what the world forgets. He heard it one morning as he stirred his coffee. Not from the room, but from somewhere internal, like a line spoken from an ancient script. He started writing the dreams down. The more he paid attention, the louder they became. The eye appeared less, but now he saw different symbols. A staircase, a cracked wall, a blue butterfly. And with each sign, he began to feel less like he was losing control and more like he was gaining clarity. Awareness isn't about knowing everything. It's about noticing the small things that lead to everything. He realized his soul had never stopped speaking. He had just been too scheduled to listen. Every dream became a breadcrumb, every synchronicity a compass. And though he still sat in front of those screens every day, he brought something new to his work. Presence, clarity. A kind of sacred focus, not perfect but deeply aware. Your soul speaks to you too. Not always in dramatic dreams or golden eyes, but in whispers, in timing, in that unshakable feeling that something means more than it seems. We live in a world obsessed with data, but your soul speaks through mystery. Don't rush past the dream that sticks. Don't dismiss the gut feeling. Don't silence the sign because it doesn't fit your calendar. Instead, for 1 week, track your dreams. Pay attention to repeating numbers, strange coincidences, or things that feel oddly on time. Write them down. You'll start to see patterns. Not random ones, sacred ones. Patterns that point back to the one part of you the world trains you to ignore, your inner knowing, because the soul remembers what the world forgets. And when you begin to remember too, awareness becomes your power, not your problem. As Omar discovered, the eye doesn't sleep. It sees beyond the noise, beyond the burnout, beyond the logic. In the next chapter, we'll travel back into a scroll buried under years of dust and discover a promise you once made, long before you had words to speak. Chapter 5. Papyrus Promises. Renee hadn't been back to her childhood home in Chicago for nearly 20 years, but when her mother passed and the keys were handed to her with trembling fingers, something inside her shifted, not in grief but in gravity, like something deeper was calling her back. The house was quiet, the way old houses are, haunted not by ghosts but by memories pressed into wallpaper and floorboards. Renee, a tired middle school teacher with lesson plans in her purse and too many unanswered dreams in her heart, climbed the attic stairs slowly, brushing dust off boxes marked stuff in her mother's sharp handwriting. She wasn't looking for anything in particular, just trying to breathe inside a life that had become too small. But then, beneath a stack of crumbling National Geographics and a yellowed report card, she found it. A scroll. Not ancient, not valuable, just a replica, rolled in aged paper and tied with a red ribbon. Her breath caught as she touched it. Childhood flashed behind her eyes. She remembered playing Egyptian princess with it at 6, speaking in pretend spells, declaring her kingdom to the attic walls. But now, at 42, it felt less like a game and more like a message sent ahead through time. She untied the ribbon slowly, reverently, like peeling back something sacred. The fake hieroglyphs danced across the parchment like firelight, and tears filled her eyes. Not because it was real, but because it reminded her that she was. Somewhere between job reviews and parent-teacher conferences, she had forgotten the girl who once believed she had a divine assignment. The scroll didn't say anything new. It didn't need to. It whispered a truth her soul already knew. The soul remembers what the world forgets. That phrase hit her like thunder in her chest. She said it aloud, felt it roll through her bones, and for the first time in years she didn't feel like a teacher standing still. She felt like a soul moving forward. That attic wasn't just an old room. It was a womb of rebirth. The truth landed hard. Our soul's promise is older than our pain, older than bills, titles, rejections. It was carved into us before breath entered lungs. Renee sat on the attic, floor, scroll in lap, eyes closed, and asked out loud, "What was my promise?" The answer didn't arrive in words. It arrived in warmth, in memory, in a sudden vivid image of her 8-year-old self telling her stuffed animals they were loved, safe, important. That was it, her promise, to remind people they mattered. She'd buried it under standards and salary and 1,000 adult things, but it never left. And neither has yours. You were born with a sacred vow inside you, a thread that runs through every joy and heartbreak. You may have forgotten it, but your soul hasn't. That's why you feel that tug sometimes, that ache that doesn't go away when you get promoted or when the bills are paid. It's not anxiety, it's alignment. Your soul trying to realign you with your purpose. And the moment you start asking the question, the answers begin to find you. It may not come through a scroll in an attic, but maybe it will come through a child's smile, a song lyric, a stranger's kindness. The message is always there. You just have to pause long enough to hear it. The soul remembers what the world forgets. Today, take one moment, just one, and ask, what was my soul sent here to do? Then write your answer, not a job, not a title, but a soul mission in one sentence, not perfect, just honest, and keep it where your eyes can see it. Because once you reconnect with your soul's promise, life doesn't just get louder, it gets clearer. Purpose doesn't shout, it whispers, just like that scroll in the attic. In Chapter 6, we'll walk into the dust where broken dreams live, and see how they were never meant to bury us, only to uncover the gold beneath. Chapter 6. Dust and Destiny. Jordan stood in the dimly lit corner of the museum, his hands dusting off the surface of an ancient Egyptian fresco. He had never thought much about art before. In fact, his life had never been about preservation. But now, after serving 5 years in prison, restoring these pieces felt like putting the pieces of his own broken life back together. His fingers gently traced the faded lines of a god's face, the vibrant colors beginning to emerge as he carefully removed layers of grime. The art had been battered by time, neglected and forgotten, much like himself. He'd come from Atlanta's toughest neighborhoods where survival was the only lesson life taught. As a young man, he'd fallen into the streets, lost, angry, and filled with a hunger for things that didn't feed his soul. That hunger led him to prison, where he discovered the depths of his own despair. He had always felt broken, like something essential was missing inside him, and every failure seemed like another piece of himself shattering. But the museum, this strange place full of ancient stories, had opened his eyes. The restoration work reminded him that broken things didn't have to stay broken. They could be rebuilt, repurposed, given new life. It wasn't until he started restoring the art that he saw how much like those faded images he was. His past, filled with mistakes and pain, had almost erased who he truly was. Yet, in the quiet of this museum, he realized that the broken parts of himself weren't something to hide. They were the very thing that made him worthy of being whole again. It was as if the frescoes themselves whispered this truth to him. Time and neglect had worn them down, but each layer of dust he removed revealed more of their brilliance. Every crack was a story, every chip a lesson. Broken doesn't mean lost, just waiting to be reassembled. That phrase echoed in his mind as he stepped back from his work and looked at the partially restored fresco in front of him. It wasn't perfect, but it was beautiful in its imperfection, telling the story of a life that had been lived. Not a flawless life, but a life full of meaning. Jordan felt something shift inside him, something deep and quiet. He wasn't a lost cause, he was a work in progress, just like the art he had been called to restore. The more he worked, the more he understood this. Every time he had fallen, he had learned something. Each failure, each bad decision, had been a layer of dust, covering up the core of who he was. But in the right hands, with the right care, that dust could be wiped away. His scars could become his story, and his story was just as worthy of being seen as the Egyptian gods on the wall. And that was the truth. Every failure had taught him something. Every mistake had been a part of his restoration process, a necessary part of who he was becoming. The soul remembers what the world forgets, and Jordan had forgotten his own strength, his own worth. But now, in this quiet museum, surrounded by stories of resilience and rebirth, he remembered. When you feel broken, when you feel like you've lost your way, remember this. Your soul is just waiting for you to rediscover it. Your journey, no matter how flawed, is just another layer of dust waiting to be swept away. And in that moment of restoration, you'll find that the person you were always meant to be was there all along, waiting to be reassembled. So take a moment. Look back at your failures, your mistakes, the things that once made you feel less than whole. They're not chains, not curses. They're the pieces of your journey, each one a part of your destiny. What's important now is how you choose to rebuild. In the next chapter, we'll explore the sacred scarab, a symbol of rebirth, and how it holds the key to transforming your pain into power. Chapter 7. The Sacred Scarab. Aaliyah stood at the counter of a small thrift store in Los Angeles, the air heavy with the smell of aged wood and old memories. She had come in to escape the weight of the silence at home, the silence that now filled every corner of the house since her divorce. Her life, once bustling with plans and love, had unraveled so quietly. It was as if the universe itself had slowly withdrawn, leaving her with nothing but fragments of the life she thought she would have. Her marriage, which had once seemed like a fairy tale, had ended in whispers. Unspoken words, unmet expectations, and years of holding on when she should have let go. Aaliyah picked up a small brass necklace from the counter, its chain delicate and worn, the pendant gleaming in the soft light of the shop. It was a scarab, the sacred beetle, a symbol of rebirth, transformation, and the eternal cycle of life and death. Something about it caught her breath, a symbol of life after death, of change even in the darkest times, and the beauty of what comes after the storm. For the first time in months, she felt something stir inside her. Hope, or maybe just the smallest spark of possibility. The scarab wasn't just a trinket, it was a message. For weeks she had been stuck in the cycle of grief, feeling as though the end of her marriage had been a death in itself. Death of dreams, death of her old self. She had mourned the loss of her happy ever after, and now, standing in that dimly lit store, she felt the weight of it begin to lift. The scarab wasn't just a symbol of what had been, it was a symbol of what could be. And in that moment, Aaliyah realized, death is not the end, it's the doorway. The doorway to new beginnings, to new ways of seeing herself and the world around her. Life had given her a chance to start over, not because she had to, but because she could. And with that realization, she felt something inside her crack open, a space for the new, the unfamiliar, and the beautiful. She purchased the necklace and wore it close to her heart every day after that. It became her ritual, a reminder that she had not reached the end, but was standing on the threshold of a new beginning. As she passed through the days after the divorce, she began to reclaim pieces of herself she had forgotten, her joy, her strength, and the voice that had been silenced for so long. With each passing day, the scarab reminded her that change is not something to fear, but something to embrace. Transformation isn't always easy. It can be messy, painful, and full of moments where we feel like we're not sure who we are anymore. But it's in those moments that we learn who we are meant to become. The scarab necklace didn't fix everything, but it became a ritual for Aaliyah, a tangible representation of her commitment to herself and to the future that was waiting for her. It wasn't just a reminder of the past, but a key to unlock her new life. In the same way, you, too, are standing on the edge of something new, whether it's a relationship, a career, or a personal transformation. The end of one thing is the beginning of another. Like the scarab, it is a symbol of resurrection, a chance to embrace the unknown and trust that death is not the end. It's the doorway. Take a moment today to create a ritual for yourself, a way to mark the new beginning. Whether it's lighting a candle, writing a letter to your future self, or holding a symbol close to your heart that reminds you of the strength you already possess. Your transformation is already happening just as it did for Aaliyah. The soul remembers, and it is ready to begin again. Chapter 8. Whispers from the Temple Walls. Tyler stood in the smoky ruins of what had been a 6-story building in downtown Denver. His heart pounded as the screech of metal and the crack of concrete filled the air, the remnants of chaos surrounding him like a storm. But it wasn't the danger he was focused on. It was the voice. A child's voice. Soft, but urgent. "Help me." He froze, the world still spinning, his team still moving with the practiced precision that came with years of training. But Tyler was rooted to the spot. He could hear the child's voice clear as day, even over the dust and destruction. He didn't question it. He didn't stop to rationalize it or wonder if his mind was playing tricks. He followed it, moving with an instinct he couldn't explain, guided by the sound of that voice that echoed in his chest like an ancient call. Seconds later, the building collapsed in a roar, the very ground beneath his feet shaking with the weight of its fall. Tyler's crew, already halfway through the debris, barely made it out in time. But he wasn't just lucky. The child's voice had warned him. It had come before the mind could process the danger. Tyler's heart didn't race because of what happened. It raced because he knew, deep down, he had heard something more than just a sound. He had heard the whisper of his soul. In the aftermath, Tyler kept playing that moment over in his mind. He hadn't been told what to do, but he had known. He had felt it before his mind could catch up. The soul, he realized, speaks in whispers long before the mind can process what's happening. It moves faster than logic, quicker than reason, sharper than fear. His intuition wasn't a fleeting thought or a lucky guess. It was a knowing, deep within, that carried more truth than anything he could have seen or touched. In those moments of calm, when all of life seems to stop, the soul rises up and whispers what the mind cannot comprehend. It guides us, not with loud commands, but with soft whispers like the temple walls that have stood the test of time, silent yet never forgotten. It's easy to miss the whispers. We're conditioned to wait for signs that scream, that are visible, loud, undeniable. But those loud moments are often the last ones to arrive. Intuition isn't always obvious. It's often soft, fleeting, a whisper beneath the noise of the world. But it's there if you learn to listen. It's like the voice Tyler heard. It didn't yell, it didn't demand, it simply spoke, and in its speaking it saved his life. The soul knows before the mind does. It sees the path before it's visible, feels the danger before it's real, and listens to the things the world is too busy to hear. The key isn't in making the soul speak louder. It's in getting still enough to hear it. In that stillness, the whispers are clear. The next time you feel lost or unsure or caught in a swirl of endless thoughts, take a breath. Close your eyes and ask, "What do I need to know today?" The answer won't come immediately. It will slip into your being like water seeping into the cracks of stone. And once you hear it, you'll know. You'll feel it in your bones. Your soul has been waiting for you to listen. The more you practice, the clearer the whispers become. They aren't just for big moments, they're for everyday decisions, for directions in life, for the next step. Tyler wasn't a mystic or a fortune teller. He was just a man who learned to listen. And in doing so, he saved a life, his own, and maybe even someone else's. In the next chapter, we'll dive deeper into the power that lies beneath the surface, the unseen force that moves us when we let it. Until then, remember, the soul whispers long before the mind can make sense of it. Chapter 9. The Light. Beneath the sand, Priya stood over her patient, sweat beading on her forehead as the sterile hospital air filled her lungs, yet nothing could mask the weight in her chest. She was a nurse in San Francisco, one of the many unsung heroes of the pandemic, and the chaos had stolen her peace. Every shift felt like an endless surge of exhaustion, every face blurred behind a mask of fear and fatigue. She had always been the strong one, the one who held others up. But what happened when she felt herself cracking? She had worked for hours on end, with little to no rest, seeing the faces of so many families who could not say goodbye. Each patient she cared for seemed to take something from her, a piece of her energy, her spirit, her hope. She had spent years pouring herself into others, yet now, there was nothing left to give. The weight of loss, uncertainty, and grief had slowly eroded her confidence, and in the silence of her empty apartment at night, she wondered where her strength had gone. Then came that moment, the night when it all seemed too much. The sound of her phone ringing, a patient's name flashing on the screen. Yet this time it felt different. It wasn't just the call for help. It was a call from deep within her. Priya stood in front of the mirror that night, staring at her reflection like she had 1,000 times before. But this time, something shifted. She had heard it before, the whispers in her soul, like grains of sand sifting through time. She was holding more than she realized. She wasn't just a nurse. She wasn't just the face of strength for everyone else. There was a deeper well within her, one that could never be drained. Her power lay in the very place she had been trying to avoid, beneath the pain, beneath the fear, the suffering she had witnessed, the patience she had lost, the moments of uncertainty. They didn't break her. They were what forged her. It was the fire beneath the sand that revealed the diamond. Priya closed her eyes and whispered to herself, "My soul holds more than I've seen." In that moment she felt it. It wasn't just a mantra. It was a truth. She was not depleted. She was not empty. She was filled with everything she needed to rise again. From that day forward, every shift was different. She worked with a quiet knowing inside her, no longer searching outside herself for strength, but drawing it from the deep well of resilience she had always carried. She had found the light beneath the sand. When you feel like you're running on empty, remember, your power often lies in the place where you hurt the most. The darkness, the pain, the exhaustion, it's all part of the process of revealing the light within. Your soul remembers what the world forgets, that you were made to endure, to transform, to rise. Next time you feel like you've given everything, stop and listen. Your soul has more to offer than you realize. And if you say it out loud, "My soul holds more than I've seen," you may just begin to feel it. The truth buried beneath the surface, waiting to light your way. In the next chapter, we'll uncover the power of silence, the stillness that holds everything you need. Chapter 10. Return to the Source. Marcus sat in his small New Orleans apartment staring at the guitar resting on the couch. The sound of the city outside, the rattle of streetcars, the laughter of tourists, it all felt distant, like a world he no longer understood. His fingers rested on the strings, but the music, the one thing that had always healed him, was gone. For months he had fought through depression, his days spent in a haze of disconnected thoughts, hiding behind his music in an attempt to drown the sorrow. But it wasn't enough anymore. Music that once spoke to him now felt hollow, uninviting, as if his soul had stopped singing. One night while lying in bed, Marcus heard it. A melody. Soft, distant, almost like a whisper but unmistakably real. The sound stirred him from his sleep, a pull so strong that he had to get up and grab his guitar. He fumbled with the strings, desperately trying to capture the tune. But it was gone, like sand slipping through his fingers. It wasn't until days later, when he found himself drifting into a half-sleep state during an afternoon nap, that it came again, clearer this time and with a force that felt like lightning. He sat up, wide-eyed, his heart racing. The melody wasn't just in his head. It felt like it was coming from deep within him, somewhere buried in the layers of his soul. He rushed to his guitar, trying to match the chords, but it was more than just a song. It was a calling. It was like his soul was singing again, reminding him of who he truly was beyond the walls of depression. In that moment, Marcus knew. His music, the thing he had forgotten, was always a part of him. It wasn't gone. It had simply been waiting for him to remember. His soul had never stopped singing. He had just stopped listening. His fingers began to find the chords. The melody swelled in his chest as he played, and for the first time in months he felt the weight lifting. It was as if a floodgate had opened, and all the pain, the grief, and the fear he had carried melted away. He wasn't playing just for himself anymore. He was playing for the version of him that had been buried underneath years of disconnection. That version had never left. His soul had always known what it needed. He just had to remember how to listen. The music didn't fix everything overnight, but it healed something deeper. It reminded him that the melody never left. It was always part of him, always available. It had simply taken a return to stillness, to himself, to hear it again. Marcus spent the next several weeks playing like he never had before. His music became a sacred ritual, a way to reconnect, not with the world but with the source of everything, the part of him that knew what he needed, before he even knew it himself. Music wasn't just something he did anymore, it was who he was. The soul speaks in different ways, but it always speaks. Sometimes we forget the song, but the melody, it never disappears. You may have forgotten too. Maybe it was your passion, your purpose, your joy that faded into the background. But it's still there, calling you, waiting for you to listen. It's never too late to return to the source, to feel the rhythm of your soul again. And the moment you do, everything changes. The soul remembers what the world forgets. In that moment of remembrance, you reclaim not just your music or your purpose, but your connection to the divine. Spend 15 minutes today doing something that calls to your soul. No logic, no judgment, just pure, soulful action. When you listen, you'll hear what you've forgotten, and when you hear it, you'll begin to remember the life you were meant to live. In the next chapter, we'll explore what happens when your soul's song becomes your truth, and how to live that truth every day. Conclusion. As you close this book, the whispers of the Egyptian soul are not meant to end. They're meant to follow you, like an ancient echo in the distance urging you to trust yourself. You've traveled through deserts of stillness, gazed into mirrors of truth, and felt the weight of the world's distractions lift from your shoulders. But the journey is never truly over. Just like the Egyptians understood the eternal nature of the soul, you are now aware that the soul is not bound by time or place. It is eternal. It lives in every breath you take and every step you make. You've learned that life is not about reaching a destination, but about reconnecting with the most ancient part of you. The part that has always been there, beneath the noise, beneath the masks, beneath the endless hustle. There will be days when the world gets loud again. There will be moments when you feel lost, confused, or disconnected from your truth. But now you know where to go. You know how to return to the desert within yourself, where stillness reigns, and your soul speaks clearly. When life pulls you into its current, remember this. The soul remembers what the world forgets. And when the noise becomes overwhelming, you can always step back into silence. You can always listen. You can always remember. This book was never just a series of stories. It was a reminder that you are not alone in your journey. The wisdom of the ancients, the stillness of the desert, and the timelessness of your own soul are always with you. The mirror you've looked into throughout these pages is not just a reflection of what you are now. It's a reflection of what you've always been and will always be. And just as the Egyptians knew the value of returning to the source, so too can you. So, as you step forward from these pages, know that your soul's journey has just begun. It's not about achieving or acquiring. It's about remembering. The wisdom of the ages flows within you. The answers are not somewhere out there. They are already inside. And now that you know this, nothing can stop you from embracing your true self, your soul self. You have everything you need. So go now. And as you walk, remember, the soul remembers what the world forgets. Your journey, your truth, and your soul's purpose are yours to discover, always.